Chapter 1: The Graveyard Girl. Once upon a time, in a small village nestled in the heart of a dense forest, there lived a girl named Lily. She was known throughout the village as the Graveyard Girl, for she spent most of her days wandering among the tombstones, talking to the spirits of the dead. Lily was an outcast, shunned by the other villagers who whispered that she was cursed, that she brought death and misfortune wherever she went. But Lily paid them no mind. She found solace in the graveyard, where the spirits listened to her and kept her company. One day, as she sat among the graves, Lily heard a voice calling out to her. It was faint at first, barely more than a whisper on the wind. But as she listened, it grew louder and more insistent. "Help me," the voice cried. "Please, help me." Lily looked around, but there was no one there. The voice seemed to be coming from beneath the ground. "Who are you?" she asked. "I am a spirit," the voice replied. "Trapped in this grave. Please, help me escape." Lily hesitated. She had never heard of a spirit being trapped in its grave before. But the voice sounded so desperate, so full of pain and sorrow. "All right," she said at last. "I'll help you." And so began Lily's journey to uncover the truth about the spirit trapped in the grave and to set it free. Chapter 2: The Spirit's Tale. Lily knelt down beside the grave and placed her ear against the cold, hard stone. The voice was clearer now, and she could hear the desperation in its tone. "Tell me your story," she said softly. "How did you come to be trapped here?" The spirit sighed, a sound like the rustling of leaves. "I was once a young woman, much like yourself," it began. "I lived in this village, and I was happy. But then, one day, everything changed." "What happened?" Lily asked. "I fell in love," the spirit replied, "with a man who was not meant for me. He was from a different world, a world of love and privilege. And when his family found out about our love, they were furious. They forbade us from seeing each other," the spirit continued. "But we could not bear to be apart. So we made a plan to run away together, to start a new life far from here." "But something went wrong," Lily said, sensing the sadness in the spirit's voice. "Yes," the spirit replied. "On the night we were supposed to leave, he never came. I waited for him, but he never arrived. And then I heard the news." "What news?" Lily asked. "That he had died," the spirit said, its voice breaking with emotion. "Killed in a terrible accident. And I was heartbroken. I could not bear to live without him. So I took my own life." Lily gasped, tears springing to her eyes. "That's so sad," she said. "Yes," the spirit agreed. "And now I am trapped here, in this grave, unable to move on." Lily wiped her eyes and stood up. "Don't worry," she said determinedly. "I'll find a way to help you." And with that, she set off into the village, determined to uncover the truth about the spirit's tragic tale. Chapter 3: The Search for Truth. Lily made her way through the village, her mind racing with questions. Who was the spirit in the grave? Who was the man she had loved? And what had really happened to him? She decided to start her search at the village inn, where travelers and locals alike gathered to share news and gossip. As she entered, she could feel the eyes of the villagers on her, their whispers following her like a shadow. But Lily ignored them and made her way to the bar, where the innkeeper was polishing glasses. "Excuse me," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I'm looking for information about a young woman who died many years ago." She was in love with a man from a wealthy family, but he died in an accident and she took her own life. The innkeeper looked at her for a moment, then shook his head. "I'm sorry, miss," he said. "I don't know anything about that." Lily frowned, disappointed. But then she heard a voice from behind her. "I might be able to help you," it said. She turned around to see an old woman sitting in the corner, her shawl wrapped around her shoulders. "Who are you?" Lily asked. "My name is Agatha," the old woman replied. "And I've lived in this village for many years. I remember the young woman you're talking about. Her name was Rose." "Rose," Lily repeated, committing the name to memory. "Yes," Agatha said, nodding. "She was a beautiful girl, with hair as red as fire and eyes as green as the forest. And she was in love with a young man named William." "William," Lily said, making a mental note of the name. "Yes," Agatha continued. "He was from a wealthy family, and they were very much against their relationship. But Rose and William were determined to be together. They made plans to run away, but then tragedy struck." "What happened?" Lily asked, leaning forward eagerly. "William was killed in a hunting accident," Agatha said, shaking her head sadly. "It was a terrible tragedy. And Rose, she was devastated. She couldn't bear to live without him, so she took her own life." Lily felt a chill run down her spine. The story was just as the spirit had told her. "Thank you," she said to Agatha. "You've been very helpful." And with that, she left the inn and made her way back to the graveyard, determined to find out more about Rose and William's tragic tale. Chapter 4: The Truth Uncovered. Lily returned to the graveyard, her mind racing with thoughts of Rose and William. She knelt down beside Rose's grave and placed her hand on the cold stone. "Rose," she said softly, "I know your story now. I know about William and the tragedy that befell you both." The spirit's voice was faint, but Lily could hear the relief in its tone. "Thank you," it said. "Thank you for listening to me." Lily smiled, feeling a sense of satisfaction. "But there's still more to be done," she said. "I need to find out what really happened to William. I need to uncover the truth." And so she set off into the village once more, determined to find out what had really happened on that fateful night. She went from house to house, asking questions and piecing together the events of that night. And slowly, the truth began to emerge. William had not died in a hunting accident, as everyone had believed. He had been murdered. Lily was shocked by this revelation. Who could have done such a thing? And why? She continued her search, following the trail of clues until she arrived at the door of a grand mansion on the outskirts of the village. This was the home of William's family, and as she stood there, looking up at the imposing facade, she knew that she was close to uncovering the truth. She took a deep breath and knocked on the door. Chapter 5: The Final Confrontation. The door to the mansion opened, and Lily found herself face to face with an elderly woman, her face lined with age and her eyes cold and hard. "Who are you?" the woman demanded. "What do you want?" Lily took a deep breath, summoning all her courage. "My name is Lily," she said, "and I'm here to find out the truth about William's death." The woman's expression changed, a flicker of fear crossing her face. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice shaking. "I know that William was murdered," Lily said, her voice steady. "And I want to know who did it and why." The woman hesitated for a moment, then stepped aside, gesturing for Lily to enter. "Come in," she said. We have much to discuss." Lily followed her into the mansion, her heart pounding in her chest. She was led into a grand sitting room, where a fire blazed in the hearth and portraits of stern-faced ancestors lined the walls. The woman sat down in an armchair and gestured for Lily to take a seat opposite her. "William was my son," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "And he was the light of my life. But when he fell in love with Rose, everything changed." She paused, taking a deep breath. "We were a wealthy family," she continued, "and we had certain expectations for our son. We wanted him to marry someone of his own class, someone who could help us maintain our position in society. But William didn't care about any of that," she said, tears welling up in her eyes. "He loved Rose, and he was determined to be with her no matter what." She looked down at her hands, twisting them in her lap. "We tried to stop them," she said softly. "We forbade them from seeing each other and threatened to disinherit William if he didn't obey us. But they wouldn't listen," she continued. "They made plans to run away together and start a new life far from here." She looked up at Lily, her eyes filled with pain and regret. "And so, we did the only thing we could think of to stop them," she said. "We arranged for William to have an accident." Lily gasped, horror filling her heart. You killed your own son?" she whispered. The woman nodded, tears streaming down her face. "It was a terrible mistake," she said. "And we have regretted it every day since." Lily stood up, feeling sick to her stomach. "I have to go," she said, turning towards the door. "Wait," the woman called after her. "Please, forgive us." But Lily didn't look back. She ran from the mansion and back to the graveyard, where she knelt down beside Rose's grave once more. "I know the truth now," she said softly. "And I promise you that I will make sure that justice is done." And with that, she stood up and walked away from the graveyard, determined to bring the truth about William's death to light. The end.